Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving into a story that's as heartbreaking as it is shocking. It's about friendship turned fatal, involving three high school sophomores, Skylar Neese, Shelia Eddy, and Rachel Shove. Buckle up, because this is a roller coaster of emotions you won't forget. Imagine a 16-year-old girl, Skylar Neese, who seemed to have the world at her fingertips. She wasn't just any teenager, she was a beacon of potential. With a 4.0 GPA, she was the kind of student teachers dream of, always attentive, always excelling. Her intelligence was not just confined to textbooks. She had a wisdom beyond her years, a maturity that made her stand out. But Skylar was more than just a grade on a paper. She had a part-time job at a local fast food restaurant, juggling academics and work with a finesse that would make you think she had life all figured out. Her colleagues loved her, her customers adored her. She had that magnetic personality that drew people in, a smile that could light up a room. Now, let's talk about her social life. Skylar was the life of the party, always surrounded by friends. She had a knack for making people feel comfortable, feel seen. But what set her apart was her unwavering loyalty to her friends. She was the kind of friend who would stand by you, no matter what. She was the person you could call at 3 a.m., knowing she'd pick up, ready to listen. But here's where the story takes a dark turn. That loyalty, that beautiful, unyielding loyalty, would become the very thing that led to her tragic end. It's heartbreaking to think that the qualities that made her so extraordinary would also make her vulnerable to unimaginable betrayal. So, who was Skylar Neese? She was a brilliant student, a hard worker, a loving friend, and above all, a young woman with a heart full of loyalty. A loyalty that would, devastatingly, be her undoing. Picture this, two 8-year-old girls, Skylar and Shelia, meeting for the first time. It's the kind of friendship that storybooks are made of. They shared secrets, laughter, and dreams. They had sleepovers, talked about boys, and planned their futures together. It was the kind of friendship where you finish each other's sentences, where you know what the other is thinking with just a glance. Skylar's dad, Dave Neese, saw this bond and welcomed Shelia into their family with open arms. Shelia wasn't just a friend, she was like a part of our family, as Dave put it. She was the sister Skylar never had. But as they say, high school changes everything. Enter Rachel Shove, a new face, a new dynamic. Rachel was different. She had her own allure, her own sense of mystery. When she walked into the room, you couldn't help but notice. And Shelia did notice. They met during their freshman year, and it was as if they were kindred spirits. Soon enough, Rachel transferred to the same high school as Skylar and Shelia, and a trio was formed. The friendship among the three seemed idyllic at first. They were the girls you'd see laughing in the hallways, sharing inside jokes, and taking endless selfies. But as we'll soon discover, this friendship was not as innocent as it seemed. It was a ticking time bomb, a volatile mix of personalities and hidden agendas. So, what happens when a lifelong friendship encounters a new, magnetic personality? The dynamics shift, the scales tip, and as we'll see, the consequences can be fatal. As the high school hallways buzzed with the latest gossip and weekend plans, Rachel, Shelia, and Skylar seemed like the epitome of teenage friendship. They were the girls you'd see laughing a little too loudly in the cafeteria, huddled together in a secretive circle during breaks, and filling their social media feeds with filtered selfies and inside jokes. But this idyllic image was just that, an image. Rachel met Shelia during their freshman year, and the connection was instant. They bonded over shared interests, from their favorite TV shows to their love for fashion. When Rachel was introduced to Skylar, it seemed like the final piece of the puzzle had fallen into place. The trio was complete, and they were inseparable, or so it seemed to the outside world. But what most people didn't see were the cracks beginning to form in this seemingly perfect friendship. The argument started out small. Disagreements over where to hang out on weekends escalated into heated debates. Skylar felt like she was being sidelined. As Rachel and Shelia started spending more time together, jealousy began to creep in, and passive-aggressive comments turned into outright confrontations. Social media, which once showcased their friendship, became a battleground. Subtweets and vague statuses hinted at a growing rift. Skylar started to feel like the odd one out, and she couldn't shake off the feeling that her once beloved friends were turning against her. The tension was palpable, a thick fog that hung over them, tainting every interaction. It was a friendship walking on a tightrope, teetering dangerously over a precipice. The question wasn't if it would break, but when, and what would be the fallout when it did. On the evening of July 5, 2012, Skylar clocked out of her part-time job at the local fast food restaurant. She was tired but content, looking forward to a relaxing night at home. She exchanged casual goodbyes with her coworkers, completely unaware that these would be some of the last people to see her. As she stepped into her home, she was greeted by the familiar comforts, the smell of dinner still lingering in the air, the soft hum of the TV from the living room, and the warm smiles of her parents, Dave and Mary Neese. But as the night wore on, something shifted. The atmosphere in her room became heavy, almost suffocating. Skylar's phone buzzed with messages, each vibration pulling her further into a web of decisions she couldn't undo. The temptation was too strong, and the teenage invincibility complex took over. What's the worst that could happen? She must have thought as she carefully removed the window screen, placing it neatly in her closet as if trying to preserve some semblance of normality for when she returned. She then took a bench, her secret tool, and positioned it just right to aid her escape. With a final glance back at her room, she climbed out of the window, her heart pounding in her chest, a mix of excitement and apprehension. The night air was thick, and the world seemed to hold its breath as she stepped into the waiting car outside. The grainy footage from the apartment's surveillance camera captured this haunting moment at 12:35 a.m., a timestamp that would later send chills down the spines of all who saw it. By the next morning, the room was just as she left it, but Skylar was gone. When her dad walked into her room and found the bed empty, a sense of dread washed over him. The room felt colder, the walls closing in as he discovered the hidden window screen and the makeshift bench. It was as if the universe itself had paused, waiting for the gravity of the situation to sink in. Skylar was missing. And the alarm bells weren't just ringing, they were blaring, drowning out all other sounds, signaling the beginning of a nightmare that no parent should ever have to endure. As the clock ticked and the hours passed, the Neese family's worry escalated into full-blown panic. Dave and Mary Neese did what any desperate parents would do. They reported their daughter missing. The local police, led by Officer Bob McCauley, swung into action, treating Skylar's disappearance with the gravity it deserved. The community was alerted, flyers were distributed, and the first threads of the investigation were pulled. But then, a call came in that momentarily lifted the weight off their shoulders. It was Shelia Eddy, Skylar's best friend since childhood. Her voice was tinged with concern but steady as she recounted the events of the fateful night. "We picked Skylar up around 11 p.m., drove around Star City, just getting high and talking," she said. "We dropped her back off before midnight. She didn't want to wake you guys up, so we left her at the end of the road." On the surface, it seemed like a typical teenage night out, but something was off. Shelia's story was too clean, too rehearsed. It was as if she was reading from a script, hitting all the right notes but lacking the raw emotion of genuine concern. And then there was the surveillance footage. A car was seen pulling up to the apartment at 12:30 a.m. Not before midnight as Shelia claimed. 5 minutes later, Skylar was seen sneaking out and getting into the car. The timelines didn't match, and the inconsistencies were glaring. The alarm bells that had momentarily quieted roared back to life, louder than ever. Every word from Shelia's mouth, every discrepancy in her story, only added fuel to the fire of suspicion. It was becoming painfully clear that the search for Skylar was far from over. It was just the beginning of a twisted journey through a maze of lies, half-truths, and betrayals that would shake the community to its core. Let's pause for a moment and talk about the surveillance footage. This footage would become the haunting last glimpse of Skylar Neese. At exactly 12:30 a.m., a car pulls up near her apartment. The grainy video shows Skylar, almost like a shadow, sneaking out of her room and getting into the car. It's chilling to think that this ordinary act of teenage rebellion would be her last known action. The desperation to find her was reaching a boiling point. And for her parents, Dave and Mary, it was an unending nightmare. Every ring of the phone, every knock on the door, they hoped it would bring Skylar back, but the nightmare continued. Days turned into agonizing weeks, and the community was buzzing with rumors. Whispers filled the air, suggesting that Skylar had gone to a house party and overdosed. Some even said she'd run away, tired of her perfect life. But the police, led by Officer Bob McCauley, weren't buying into these stories. They sensed something darker was at play. They continued to dig, to question, to probe. And then, a breakthrough that would send shockwaves through not just the community, but the entire nation. What they discovered was something no one was prepared for, something that would change the lives of everyone involved, forever. 6 months of agonizing uncertainty came to a screeching halt when Rachel Schoaf did the unthinkable, she confessed. Overwhelmed by a cocktail of guilt, fear, and the weight of a secret too heavy to bear, Rachel broke down. She told authorities that she and Shelia had not just been accessories to the crime but were the masterminds and executors of it. They had cold-bloodedly stabbed Skylar, their best friend, to death. The confession was like a bomb going off, shattering the community's last vestiges of innocence. Parents hugged their children a little tighter that night, grappling with the unimaginable reality that the girl next door could be a murderer. The betrayal was not just of Skylar but of everyone who knew them, a betrayal that shook the very foundations of trust and friendship. As we come to the end of this gut-wrenching story, we're left grappling with a haunting question: how could this happen? How could two young girls, who had their whole lives ahead of them, commit such a monstrous act? And how could Skylar, so full of life and promise, fall victim to the very people she called friends? This story is a grim testament to the dark complexities of human relationships. It's a cautionary tale that compels us to reevaluate the bonds we hold dear, to question the true meaning of friendship, and to confront the unsettling reality that sometimes evil wears a familiar face. As we close this chapter, let's honor Skylar Neese's memory by being vigilant in our own lives, by cherishing the true friendships we have, and by never forgetting the life that was so senselessly taken. Thank you for taking this harrowing journey with me. May Skylar Neese rest in peace, and may we all find some semblance of peace in the quest for justice and understanding. Until next time, take care.